What is your we never speak of this again story? When my best buddy and I were still in high school, we decided to go up an old mountain road and do some underage drinking in his car. We were up there for a while and all of a sudden we see headlights behind us. Fearing it was a cop, we hid the beer and my friend looks over to me and says, "Just follow my lead." Turns out it was a cop. We rolled down the windows and he asked what we were up to this late at night up in the mountains. I'm sitting in the passenger seat freaking out, hoping he can't smell any of the beer. My friend looks over at the cop and in the calmest voice says, "It's our 2-year anniversary tonight and we were trying to get away from everything." He then reaches over, picks up my hand and kisses the back of it. The cop looked at us for another few seconds and told us to have a nice and safe night. Just another couple of gay boys enjoying themselves up in the mountains at 1 AM. My college roommate and I were in Italy and we were lost at a small town train station where there's no English and no one spoke English at all. The way the train station is set up is that we have to take stairs underground and take stairs back up to cross the platform. We were trying to figure out which train to take and ended up going back and forth since we barely understood any Italian. After a few trips going up and down, we decided to just cross back and forth across the tracks. This was way before smartphones, so we were in the middle of the tracks while I used a compass to figure out which direction Florence was. Then we realized it was noisier than usual, looked up, and saw a train coming. In panic, we ran in front of the train to the platform across instead of backwards to safety. Realized we nearly won Darwin Awards. We agreed not to tell anyone about how dumb we were. My dad found out how to stream videos from his phone to the TV. He's testing it out, and 16-year-old me asks to have a go. I scroll randomly through all these untitled videos he has in his phone and click on one. The dirtiest, filthiest gangbang porn pops up on the TV in front of both of us, and I just hand him the phone and walk out. Never spoke about this since. I was on a road trip with a buddy. We were heading to a 3-day music fest in Tennessee. We drove through the night and were making good time. He was driving and asked me to take the wheel for a second. I did. He grabbed a Gatorade bottle, unzipped, and started pissing in the bottle. I was a bit uncomfortable with my hand 6 inches above his exposed weenie, but we were going 75 miles per hour and his foot was on the gas. We had more pressing concerns, is my point. He finishes up, and in one swift motion, rolls down the window, and lifts the Gatorade bottle toward the window to dump it. Wait, what do? Imagine a full bottle of warm piss filling up the entire interior of a car like a fine aerosol spray in a split second. That's what 75 miles per hour wind blowing inward does to a bottle of liquid trying to go outward. I learned that the hard way. Of course it got in my mouth. But that wasn't the worst of it. It was clogging my ears, like I had been swimming. It was stinging my eyes. It went so far up my nose that I sneezed it out. Twice. We looked at each other, dripping piss. All I could say was, "Damn it. God damn it, dude." He turned on the AC after a time. Piss droplets blew out onto us. It was dripping on us from the ceiling of the car. We rode for a long time in silence. Do you know what a person and the interior of a car covered in piss smell like after being in 103-degree heat for 3 days and no means to wash up? I was drinking vodka and I had this guy pal that I was trying to bang, but he refused to bang a drunk girl while he was sober. I grabbed my phone and started looking for some action. No such luck. I eventually passed out and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I read the texts I'd sent in absolute horror. Me. What are you doing? G. Getting ready for bed. You? Me. Drunk, topless, and looking for some fun. G. Lol. Good luck. I'm going to bed. G. Happened to my boss who just started a few weeks ago. At the time Facebook would merge your friend's contact info into your address book. I never spoke of it again and had a difficult time looking him in the eye. My brother has the same name as one of our uncle's close friends, so he mistakenly calls my brother sometimes thinking it's his friend. He's currently in a very serious relationship, and last weekend my brother got a call with him drunkenly saying, "I've got 2 girls who will help us out for $300. My brother told him wrong guy again. He stammered and hung up. We both agreed to not mention it to anyone. A few friends were hanging out at my cousin's house. My uncle came home and decided to kick us out. My cousin gets in a verbal altercation with my uncle that ends with my cousin yelling, "I hope you die." My uncle died of a heart attack the next day. Oh god. When I was 9 I had a friend, Donna. Donna was a little more mature than I was. She brought up sex. The only thing I knew about sex was that it was bad because of an abstinence-only billboard that was up by my grandma's house. Guess what part of America I live in? I told her that it was bad, and she said it's how you make babies, stupid. So naturally she proposes we have sex. We were in our underwear and t-shirts. She leaned in to kiss me, and I pulled away. Nothing of any sexual nature happened, but she said that was it, we had sex. So I feared for weeks I was pregnant, and woke up in the middle of night sobbing to my mom that I was pregnant, and I had sex with Donna. She explained that's not how any of that worked. My mom and I have never mentioned it again in the past 11 years since. I was 6, and we were moving. There was an electrical socket I had never seen before. I had a paperclip. It looked like it fit right in, and it did. I had a shock in my whole hand, but fortunately dropped the paperclip out of the light socket quickly enough so that nothing else happened. I went upstairs and told my mom that my hand felt funny after I'd stuck a paperclip in a socket. She told me never to tell my dad because it had upset him to think that I could have been killed due to my own stupidity without his being there to protect me. I'm an only child, was a sickly baby, and I'm still a daddy's girl thanks to that. It's been 30 years, and I still haven't told him. My brother and I were very poor back in 2009. He was about 19. I was about 10. We were in poverty, scraping by on quarters. One day, outside of Walmart, we found a McDonald's Ursula salad container full of cheese fries. We ate every bite. My now ex-wife wants crap in her hand while we were driving down the interstate because it was too far to the closest bathroom. To answer some questions for y'all, she held it in her hand for a few miles until we made it to a gas station. I offered several times to pull over so she could at least do it on the side of the road, but she refused. To this day anytime I hear somebody say handy crap, that's all I can think about. Not so much we never spoke of it again, but I've never spoken of it. In college, skipped the day to play some Cody. Got bored and decided to take matters into my own hands. My dorm room was on top floor 4th and the window blinds were open. As I was furiously taking out my frustrations, a window washer came up to the window on a suspended scaffold. We locked eyes for a second, and he left my window unwashed and slowly went back down. My dad kept a huge suitcase full of porn stashed in the basement of my childhood home. I used to sneak down there and watch such memorable titles as Interview with the Milkman and Buttman's European Vacation. Several years into my secret viewings, my parents put the house up for sale. They took my younger siblings with them on a car trip up north for the weekend in the city they wanted to move to. I stayed home and proceeded to have a party one night, inviting a bunch of my friends. We trashed the house, drank a bunch of beer, and of course, watched all of my dad's porn. Flash forward a few months later, we sell the house and are in the process of packing. I get home from school one afternoon, and my father is standing in the driveway with his most terrifying angry dad face. My dad is 6'4", 250 pounds, tattoos, former correction officer in a maximum security prison. I walk up to him, and he says, "Why are you snooping through my crap in the basement?" I reply, "What IDK, what you're talking about?" He says, "Bullcrap, those videotapes. Some of them aren't even mine, and I have to give them back to someone who let me borrow them. There's some missing. Go down the street and tell your flipping stoner friend to give them back. I bet he stole them. Do it or I'll tell your mother what I found in your room." He holds out my Zippo collection, a glass bowl, various sleeping pills and caffeine pills I'd take. My dad was blackmailing his 14-year-old son to return his porn. I got on my bike, rode down the block to my friend's, knocked on his door, and asked for my dad's porn back. He sighed and reluctantly gave me several VHS tapes he swiped from the party night. I rode back up to my house, and in the driveway in broad daylight, my 14-year-old self handed my father back his porn. It was never spoken about, or hinted at ever again. I like to think that my dad and I came to understand each other better that day. One time I sent my girlfriend a nude, but I accidentally sent it to her home phone. Apparently, any message sent to her home phone number gets redirected to her dad's cell phone. This happened a couple weeks ago. My wife and I were trying to fall asleep, but we had an early morning trip to Universal Studios planned, and we were a little too jazzed. We're annual pass holders and local, but we hadn't been in a while because of the heat and crowds. So my wife suggests doing it, thinking it would help us fall asleep better. We turn our TV on and turn the volume up just enough to mask any sounds we may make, and we are doing our thing, and soon we can hear my wife's mom who lives with us and is down the hall up and moving around. We stop and kinda wait for her to go back to her room, because we figure she's just going to the bathroom. We don't hear her anymore, so we go back to it, and my wife says she wants it in a place a little lower. So she gets on all fours, and I just barely get it in, and she's got her back arched and her head thrown back when I hear the door fly open, and I look back to see our 6-year-old daughter and my mother-in-law standing in the doorway. I slide out and quickly cover myself, and the wife does the same, and my daughter, who has absolutely no idea what we were doing, cheerfully walks in with her blankie and stuffed animal and says, "I had a bad dream," and proceeds to get in the bed between us. And my mother-in-law, who has to know what we were doing, makes no attempt to keep my daughter from coming in and just says, "I'm sorry," and makes some excuse about hearing the TV on and thought we were awake and be able to accommodate her. She very quickly closes the door and heads back to her room, leaving the two of us unsatisfied and with an awake child at 2:30 in the morning. My wife, who is a huge prude around her mom, says, "We will never talk about this again." I agree, but I say, at least she knows we still do it. Because she was under the impression that when my wife came out as bi, it meant we can't have sex for some reason and she would never get another grandchild. Mine happened a couple years back. I was just minding my own business, going about my day, when I get a text from my dad. Of course, I read it, since it's from my dad. The text reads, "Can there be Slava playing tonight's entertainment? I need you. Me and my sister once found a whip in a cupboard, so it's easy to put 2 and 2 together." 5 minutes later, the most sincere "oops I have ever seen" pops up on my screen. I never responded to that text, and I have never brought it up, but we both know it happened. My now ex-husband had to have thyroid surgery a few years ago. He was having a lot of swelling, so they gave him some Percocet to take. Anyone who has taken Percocet before knows that it might work very well, but it's not without side effects. One of those side effects happens to be constipation. We knew this would happen. My husband and I are both doctors. I urged him to keep eating fiber or take a stool softener or something. He laughed it off. "Babe, my bowels are amazing. Nothing's going to happen to me." Days passed and he continued to heal, requiring less and less of the medication. I noticed his appetite hadn't picked up much, but I thought, cut him a break. He just had surgery. That night I found him on the couch clutching his stomach and scowling. Immediately I knew what was up and said as gently as I could, "Now will you take the stool softener?" He relented. Hours passed. Stool softeners don't work instantly, and they were up against days of hardened poo. My husband began pacing and sweating. He has a pretty high pain tolerance, and I began to feel alarmed. We massaged his poor, distended tummy, and you could literally feel the lumps of hard poo. He's a pretty thin guy, not much subcutaneous fat. After hours of stool softeners, tummy rubbing and fluids, he started to really sweat. Now I was really worried. Had he perfed? Suddenly he leaped up, ran into the bathroom, and slammed the door. I sat outside waiting for a noise, a fart, a wail, something. Finally I heard him sob my name. I walked in, and my cool aloof husband was bawling his eyes out, sitting on the toilet, and pushing on his stomach like an uncomfortable little kid. He turned green, and I immediately recognized that face. I had just enough time to grab a trash can to catch the vomit that came streaming out. Seconds before an enormous shot and a huge blast of diarrhea turd chunks. There was my surgeon husband, crying, barfing, crapping and hanging onto my arm for dear life. It was so painful to watch, and to this day he says it's the only time he's truly been in 10/10ths pain. Yeah. We didn't really talk about that day much after that. Though he never did disrespect the constipating powers of Nux from that day forward. Like and subscribe for more videos.